"You're an embarrassment," my dad said at my wedding. Then my husband's lawyer stood up. "You're an embarrassment to this family," my dad said into the microphone. "I won't watch my daughter ruin her life." The room went silent. Then someone slowly stood up behind him. "My name is Lauren Mitchell, and I'm 34 years old. I work as a high school guidance counselor. I've always been the steady one, the quiet fixer in the family. I wasn't rich or glamorous. I didn't marry into millions. My husband, Daniel, is a small business accountant, and we built everything slowly, paycheck by paycheck. Growing up, my younger brother was the favorite. He got the praise, the money, the attention. I got lectures about being realistic and careful. My dad believed status mattered more than happiness. If it didn't look impressive to others, it didn't count. When Daniel proposed, my dad barely smiled. He pulled me aside and said, "You could have done better." I remember the smell of expensive cologne in his office and how small I felt standing there. But what he didn't understand was that I wasn't chasing money. I was building stability and peace. I wasn't flashy, but I had something they didn't expect. And on my wedding day, that difference would finally matter. If you've ever been judged for who you loved or told your partner wasn't good enough, subscribe. I want to hear your story in the comments. Sometimes the strongest relationships don't look impressive from the outside. Click hype if you believe love isn't about status. Let's continue. Our reception was beautiful but modest, about 120 guests in a warm ballroom that smelled like roses and fresh bread. Laughter filled the room. Glasses clinked. I thought maybe we would get through the night peacefully. Then my dad stood up during the speeches and walked straight to the microphone. No warning. No invitation. "I paid for part of this wedding, so I get to speak," he announced. I felt Daniel's hand tighten around mine. Dad looked at him and said, "Daniel is a safe choice. Lauren always settles. She's afraid to aim higher." A few awkward chuckles slipped out from distant relatives. My mother stared at her plate. I could hear the faint hum of the air conditioner above us. It sounded louder than the whispers. Dad continued, "I just hope she doesn't regret this in 5 years." My cheeks burned. My chest felt tight. Daniel leaned closer and whispered, "I'm here." Then Dad said it again, slowly, clearly, "You're an embarrassment to this family." Gasps rippled through the room. A fork dropped somewhere behind us. I didn't cry. I refused to give him that. I took a slow breath. I straightened my shoulders. And that's when I saw Mr. Thompson, Daniel's lawyer, rising quietly from table 8. Calm. Measured. My dad's smile flickered. Guests leaned forward in their seats. And in that silence, everything began to shift. This wasn't new. Before the wedding, Dad constantly reminded me he helped pay. "Don't forget who's funding this," he would say. He tried to control the guest list. He circled names in red pen like he was approving a business deal. He even demanded Daniel's parents sit at the back near the kitchen doors. "They're not our level," he said. I stared at him. "They're his parents." He shrugged. "Image matters." At our engagement dinner, he clinked his glass and smiled at Daniel. "So when are you upgrading jobs?" Some cousins laughed. Daniel stayed calm. "I'm proud of what I do," he said. Dad rolled his eyes. "Ambition is important." 2 weeks before the wedding, he called me into his study. The room smelled like leather and old paper. He slid a document across the desk. "Just a family agreement," he said. It outlined conditions about inheritance if I ever divorced. Control disguised as protection. "I'm not signing this," I said. His jaw tightened. "Then don't expect support when this fails." I walked out shaking, but I didn't argue anymore. I stopped trying to win his approval. I focused on something else. Quietly. Carefully. I built my own protection. What they didn't know was that Daniel wasn't just a small accountant. And I wasn't just a school counselor helping with wedding plans. For 3 years, I'd been working with Daniel after hours, reviewing financial records for small companies. Forensic accounting became my hidden strength. While my family mocked my boring spreadsheets and late-night paperwork, I was learning how to trace numbers, how to spot patterns, how to see what others tried to hide. Over time, I noticed irregular entries in my father's company filings. Transfers that didn't match reports. Deductions that made no sense. I didn't confront him. I collected everything. Emails, public records, archived reports. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was protecting myself in case he tried to use money against me again. I had a plan they never saw coming. Months before the wedding, an ex-employee from my father's company contacted me. His name was Mr. Reyes. He had been the operations manager until he questioned missing funds and was suddenly fired. Your dad's books don't add up, he told me quietly over coffee. The cafe smelled like roasted beans and cinnamon. His hands shook as he passed me copies of internal memos. Together, we compared notes. His documents filled the gaps in my findings. I passed everything to Mr. Thompson. Calm, professional, thorough. Meanwhile, my dad grew louder. He bragged about expanding his business. He told relatives Daniel would never reach that level. Some people are meant to follow, he said. He believed he had already won. Financial power, reputation, control. But Mr. Thompson wasn't at table 8 for cake. After Dad finished his speech at the reception, Mr. Thompson stepped forward. Sir, since you've chosen a public forum, we should clarify something, he said evenly. Dad laughed. This isn't the time. Actually, it is. His voice cut clean through the room. He explained there were ongoing inquiries into financial discrepancies in my father's company. Documented evidence had already been submitted for legal review. Murmurs spread. The sound of whispers replaced laughter. That's ridiculous, Dad snapped. The documents speak for themselves, Mr. Thompson replied. Daniel stood beside me. Steady, silent, strong. I took the microphone. My hands were no longer shaking. You wanted to embarrass me publicly, I said. I'm done staying quiet. I told everyone I refused to sign inheritance conditions because I won't be controlled. I said respect isn't bought with money or demanded through fear. Dad tried to interrupt. No one laughed this time. He looked smaller. Not powerful. Just exposed. You don't get to define my worth anymore, I said. Silence filled the ballroom. Then Daniel's parents began to clap. Slowly, others joined. The applause grew louder. Dad stepped back, speechless. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the quiet fixer. I was the woman who chose herself. He left the reception early. In the months after, legal consequences unfolded quietly. Investigations, audits, meetings behind closed doors. I didn't celebrate his downfall. I celebrated my freedom. Daniel and I built our life without his help. Some relatives called to apologize for staying silent. I forgave them, but I kept my boundaries. When I look at our wedding photos, I don't see humiliation. I see strength. I see the moment I stopped begging for approval.